He managed to trump all other presidential contenders by promising to put America first and pursuing protectionist policies. Less than a year into Donald Trump's presidency in the U.S., not only have his decisions earned him a firestorm of rebukes at home, they seem to be resulting in the country's drift toward political isolation. Trump's recent decision to recognize Jerusalem al-Quds as Israel's capital and his order on the U.S. Embassy relocation to the occupied city has prompted a UN Security Council emergency meeting. The outcome was a blow to Washington, as even its traditional Western allies, including London, Paris, and Berlin, denounced Trump's move as, quote, unhelpful in terms of prospects for peace in the region.
I do think the U.S. was already pretty isolated on the Israel-Palestine issue after decades of vetoing anything that criticizes Israel, so perhaps it's even more isolated at this point. How this is going to affect the rest of U.S. diplomacy is really unclear because I don't know who's in charge. I don't know what the policy is.
As international condemnations pour in over President Donald Trump's Israel plan, the U.S. Secretary of State has sought to ease the atmosphere of tension. During a presser in Paris alongside his French counterpart, Rex Tillerson said the final status of Jerusalem al-Quds would be left to the parties to negotiate and decide. The top U.S. diplomat also said the American embassy relocation process would take a few years to complete.
Well, Tillerson seems to have had the job of mopping up after the messes that Trump makes. So this may be his attempt to soothe all the feathers that have been ruffled by Trump's behavior. It's a little hard to know what Tillerson's role is because there's all this chatter going on in the U.S. That he's going to be kicked out and replaced by somebody else.
The Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is located in East Jerusalem al-Quds, is the third holiest site for Muslims, and Palestinian negotiators want the eastern part of the city as the capital of a future state. Israel, however, occupied the entire city following the 1967 Arab-Israeli War and has ever since been violating international regulations by constructing settlement units there. The international community has never recognized Israel's claim to the entire city, and now Trump's decision, which is heavily biased towards Israel, has killed hopes for the achievement of a so-called two-state solution. Saudi Arabia was among the countries whose leaders opposed President Trump's move to recognize Jerusalem al-Quds as Israel's capital. Nevertheless, there were questions about Riyadh's sincerity in its stance against the anti-Palestinian plan, given growing relations between the kingdom and Israel. Now, reports suggest that Saudi Arabia's crown prince is conniving to advance a U.S. plan for the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that heavily favors Tel Aviv. As part of the plan that Mohammed bin Salman is said to have discussed with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank would stay, and there would be no right of return for Palestinian refugees. Palestinians would in turn be offered limited self-government alongside disconnected patches of the occupied West Bank.
Saudi Arabia has traditionally said it's not dealing with Israel. The Palestinian issue is number one, but there's been a lot of sort of saber rattling around the issue of Iran, and it may be that Saudi Arabia is trying to put its ducks in a row to go up against Iran, and they see Netanyahu and the Israeli government as willing to do that with them.
The proposal has reportedly been put forward by Jared Kushner, Donald Trump's Jewish son-in-law and senior advisor who has developed close ties with Mohammed. The plan is just in line with the U.S.-Israeli plots for the region, and Saudi Arabia's alleged support for it further reveals Riyadh's total disregard for the Palestinian cause.